Hi, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to Power of Knowing Forum, LinkedIn Live podcast episode 105. Today, we are having a discussion on the topic of empowering your organization through data privacy excellence. We have the honor of having Mr. Sanjeev. Hi, everybody. We have Mr. Sanjeev Nadgir, an information security leader on data privacy, data security practitioner, worked extensively on banking, manufacturing, retail, and healthcare domains. Without further ado, would like to bring our esteemed speaker Sanjeev Nadkar on to the podcast event. Hi, Sanjeev.
Hey everyone, hello.
Hi. Welcome to our podcast, sir. Would you like to introduce yourself? That would be a great thing for our audience to start with.
Absolutely. Hi everyone, I am Sanjeev Nadgir. Been a little over a decade in information security. I'm passionate about football and I used to play as a defender. So
Mhm.
just like I have passion on the football field to defend the opponent's attack, I carry the same passion into my profession, and I defend cybersecurity, information security, and privacy attacks. Uh, it's a fabulous opportunity to be here and to be talking to all of you all. Looking forward to a good discussion.
Yeah, thank you, Sanjeev. Sanjay, one question. Inspired you to take or prioritize data privacy excellence within your career?
Fabulous question. So, data privacy. Maybe I'll take a step back and talk
Yeah.
about privacy.
Mhm.
Traveling in Mumbai locals, it's always an awkward moment when you're using your phone and somebody's peeping over your shoulder to see what you're doing. What
Yeah.
what messages you're sending. So I
Yes.
have been sensitive about privacy in that aspect, and it's a very small idea which, when you apply it to organizations, a lot of organizations collect a lot of information. I won't
Mhm.
just say data. And how do we organizations treat these information that we collect from different sources plays a very vital role. uh, Before all of the privacy laws, data protection laws came into picture, there have been groups and organizations which were a little sensitive towards these practices. Uh, Come GDPR, it was a big step in the right positive direction for organizations, people to become aware of their rights to begin with. I know a lot of people started taking things for granted. Neither
Mhm.
did the users like us. Maybe we are a little educated in terms of security and privacy. The common masses, they weren't so aware about the rights that they would have. And given the kind of trajectory, if you look back at times and how things have changed over a period of time, you now hear people saying, "Hey, I won't give this to you because I want to know what are you going to do with my phone number."
Mhm.
And so the whole journey is so fascinating. It really took me to a level where I not just read through the laws. I also happen to take some courses and bring them into implementation through different means and practices.
Wonderful. So I also have been part of security practice for quite some time, and one thing that I understand is what you said at the moment,
Mhm.
right? Where why your data has to be looked at. I think with the GDPR coming into picture, we see a lot of things. I was talking in one of the seminars on DevOps World Summit last
Mhm.
week,
Mhm.
where we were talking about how data is getting collected based on the Indian privacy laws that are there. Currently there is nothing as you are asked to give everything and everything anything that is required
Correct.
even for a SIM card. So
Correct.
no guarantee of what kind of data where is used and how it is getting processed and how it is getting treated. So I'm
So
with you
true.
on that pointer. So I was telling them is with the laws coming in, it becomes very strict for us to have such a pointer, and
Indeed.
every data that they collect they have to give us a clarification why the data is collected, when it is processed, how many days it will be kept, what is the archival process, what is the deletion process, and the confirmation process. I think that is going to be an amazing step that the government has planned for taking our personal information
Indeed.
to be a priority, right? So,
Indeed.
how has the landscape of data privacy changed over the past decade, and what are the trends should organizations be aware on today? Sanjeev?
A very interesting point to probably ponder in a couple of ways. So, first being, one is, so when we were kids, our moms would ask us to, you know, eat on time, and when we wouldn't listen, they would give us. I mean, I'm from the 80s, 90s.
Yeah.
We would get a smack on the head, you know. So there's also a saying in Hindi which goes, "Lato ke bhoot baaton se nahi mante."
Mante, correct.
So a lot of people were asked to follow certain practices, and when they would not do so,
Mm,
penalizing them for defaulting is something that always motivates. If it is not the carrot, it has to be the stick. And I
mm,
see uh, a lot of organizations being motivated by default, which is where principles like privacy by default, by design
mm,
comes into picture.
correct.
These kind of a lot of organizations have been very sensitive about when they collect information at the design stage itself. They only take what is required. I see
Mm,
that trend changing. Initially, it was just, hey, I'm going to have a huge penalty if I don't do this. Let me try
mm,
and figure something out.
yeah,
It hasn't been the same anymore. Things have changed. People would want to incorporate, just like in security, we've had the shift left approach. Uh, it's a fabulous thing to see that organizations are being very proactive about this measure. Even before they would design a product, some of them have been thinking about, in fact, a lot of them have been thinking about what do I need to make this product work, and
yeah.
how long do I need it? And the principle of least privilege, very basic concepts. If you were to ask somebody, maybe somebody can explain you these concepts in just 2 lines, but they are very impactful.
I think what you said is very important because now the consideration of privacy operations is becoming very important, and people have started looking at should I include it from design or should I make it default. What is
True.
the default that is going in as a security, this one, and it
Hmm.
again goes into the domains that we are working on, right?
So
If it
true.
is a healthcare, it is going to be HIPAA. If it is a BFSI domain, then RBI guidelines and the local regulatory of that or country will kick in for them. Then the privacy laws will come up like GDPR, CCPA, and stuff like that. And
Absolutely.
so a lot of things that are there around. So it is a very crucial step, I think, how you should treat privacy by design and by default.
Indeed.
Can you share a success story where implementation of robust privacy measures significantly benefited you as a person and the organization somewhere? One
Absolutely.
example, we will not refer to any organization names, but we can say some banking domain or stuff like, so that makes it
Absolutely.
simpler for us because we don't want to name anybody's
Absolutely.
organization. Okay.
Indeed. So I'll take an example where we'll call this company ABC Corp.
Hmm.
Now, ABC Corp was pretty sensitive about what they are doing when they realized that during their different logging, monitoring aspects, they realized there was something that was off.
Hmm.
Here they see that there is a certain set of PII, which is humongous in number.
Hmm.
Uh, though they had proper layered security approach, role-based access control, multi-factor authentication, and all of that in place, uh, they said, let us still do an assessment and see where we stand in terms of our privacy maturity. Security maturity has been there. Now,
Hmm.
again, a point to be noted here is privacy and security have to go hand in hand
Hmm.
to a very large extent, despite them being very specific domains. Now, when they saw the security practices being good as a part of continuous improvement, ABC Corp chose to try and improve their privacy practices. Now, how do you improve something? First you know where you stand, which is where the privacy assessment came into picture. And there was the whole shebang where they understood data flow analysis. They tried to understand which stages are very sensitive and critical when it comes to PII collecting, processing, or storing, followed by aspects where the need of having uh, so much of VI at so many stages for X or Y or Z number of days, months, years. Also respecting the different retention laws by different sectors. Now, once they had that map ready, it was very important to understand what is the impact of PII at those various stages. Now, if I, for example, I have a phone in my hand. If I drop this inside this room, the impact won't be much because I have a very secure phone guard. Now, what if I drop this outside of this room and 2 stories below? Now that the impact will be big.
Yeah.
Now, to so the position makes the placement and position makes a lot of difference about where an information lies. Same goes with zeros. You put a zero before numbers, they don't have value, but put it after, it has a lot of value.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So the place where the information lies and how secure is it, how protected is it, as well as data masking. You know, one of the very important facts that we always strive to achieve, despite a lot of common problems. I'll give an example. Just the other day, I was trying to contact the electricity board of a certain city, and it was good to see that they had implemented some kind of a bot. Now, uh, this is a parallel example where I'm trying to see how companies face a challenge of data masking. Now, the bot is asking, "Hi, how are you?" All the greetings are exchanged, and they ask for a CA number, customer account number, something. Now, when I give my bill number or my customer account number, it is a it is a identifier very specific to that particular power or electricity company. Instead of giving that, me as an unaware user, if I directly go on and type my Aadhaar card number or my phone number, I am unintentionally giving out information that is not required by their system. So how will that XYZ power company process my unsolicited leakage or overexposure of PII? Now, this is one factor which has been a challenge for organizations that directly interact with PII, especially B2C organizations. It is important to understand, even when you talk about a DLP as a solution, it can be there, the control can be implemented on the endpoint while in transit. But how do you be a superman and stop the data while you're typing? You know, that's one of the challenges that organizations have been trying to solve. So
The
coming back
difficult
to,
challenge. The difficult challenge.
indeed,
Yeah.
indeed. So a superman can catch a bullet, but I can never stop an unaware user trying to give out their PII where it is not needed.
Right. Right.
So going back to ABC Corp, they realized where the exposure is, how to probably see and do it, and it was a fabulous outcome at the end of 7 to 8 months.
Okay.
Now the challenge is, after a while, so we tend to have some kind of how would I put it, comfort, you know, after even though I have been on a certain diet on a period of, let's say, 4 to 5 days, the sixth day I might want to have a sweet,
Yeah.
or
That craving will be there always because
indeed.
5 days you have lived without it and suddenly you want that craving will always be there. Yeah.
Indeed, indeed. So, though we have processes, we have got procedures, protocols, we may tend to slack a little, not intentionally, but because of
Mm.
various reasons. So, that is where ABC Corp saw that a one time assessment isn't something that is going to help us. It did in a very big way, but it has to be continuous.
Mm.
So, how do we do it? The first approach was pure manual assessment where people stepped in. They took a whole lot of information in terms of data flow, where it goes, who are responsible, who's accountable, the whole RISI matrix, various parameters were evaluated. But then the need to do it continuously and give the ownership to respective smaller process owners uh, came to light. And
Hmm.
that is where the next step would be try and look for a tool which kind of automates this. I won't name stuff, but essentially that is where the journey led of ABC Group.
Yeah. Okay. So coming to our point, what are the key components of a comprehensive data strategy? See, strategy plays a very important role when we look at data. So,
In-
what strategies can be key components? And we are talking about comprehensive. So, we need to touch almost all the pointers that are required while we look at data as a subset there, and we bring up pointers. Any
Absolutely.
thoughts around it?
Absolutely. So, uh, I'll keep talking about data flow analysis again and again because it is one of the most critical and most underlooked
Yeah,
aspect of any process.
data is money going forward.
Has been, will be,
Yeah,
knock
yeah.
on the wood. So, the first aspect is let's probably split it into two aspects. One is you're already a running organization, and now you've suddenly become either regulated or you've become aware that privacy is very important, and now you're trying to assess something.
Yeah.
And second is you're starting with things.
Mm.
The best thing to do is learn from others' mistakes, and when you start, don't have those mistakes in place.
Yeah. I think
So,
from a standpoint where your point seems to be valid when we look at,
mhm,
we are talking about some of the learnings that we don't want to do
absolutely,
where somebody has
absolutely,
tried out. And I think from a standpoint, known error database or a known knowledge database, something like that will
absolutely.
definitely help us to with plan it properly, where are the pitfalls that we had, and that way
Indeed,
really help.
indeed,
Yeah.
indeed. I hear you.
Yeah.
So this is where I was going to discard the fresh starters and
Mhm.
focus on experienced learners from their or other people's mistakes.
Okay.
So always build a flow or a life cycle and try to understand where you begin from.
Mm.
Where is the intake of the information happening, and what kind of systems are they flowing through?
Mm.
If you see a certain it's a very strict requirement. None of the production data is I've never seen it being used in lower environments, and all the organizations I've seen have been strictly following it.
Mm.
Now, are they checking if the person has the access to both the environments? If they do, what kind of checks do they have as a secondary or tertiary check to ensure human errors?
Mm.
Now, I may not want uh, my very experienced people or professionals to really have this. How do I put it? A very heavy responsibility to ensure there's no human error. So maybe automation comes into picture,
Okay.
which is where the principle of least privilege, give only what is needed, is
Mm.
very important.
Zero trust.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So there's a special publication around it. There have been so many discussions on so many forums around
Yeah.
ZT.
Yeah.
Uh, Absolutely. So you try and see where things are starting from. Uh,
Okay.
when you look at certain companies, they've got to comply with laws of every nation that they're working with. Now, if
Wherever
you
your operations are there, you will have to comply
indeed,
with that. Now, if it is in European Union, you have to comply with GDPR. In Brazil side, you have Brazil LG, I think. So I'm not getting the right name. So CCPA in the US, and now
right,
with GDPR, DPDP here in India.
indeed.
So yes,
So
yeah,
there are roughly 173 to 174 countries across the globe that have got a privacy law
yes,
or
yes.
data protection law. Now, their specifics differ.
Mm,
However, for me as a data privacy practitioner of a certain organization which is very serious about data privacy, what we need to understand is what are the components of. Now, see, when you taking a step back, when you look at house improvement, there can be so many aspects. You might want to upgrade your uh, doorbell. You might want to add an air purifier, and God knows
Yeah,
what not.
yeah, yeah.
What is the structured way? That is where there are these structures that come into picture, giving you the priorities of what to do first and what to do second, and so on and so forth. So every privacy law, data protection law, will have a proper direction for every organization to try and focus on those aspects.
Hmm.
First is having somebody who is aware of the practices in data privacy. If you don't know, you can obviously learn from all the different articles. You also host a lot of talks. There's a lot of opportunity to learn from this forum. There are so many guides, people who can really help people out. Now, knowledge source isn't a problem. The right kind of knowledge is the problem. So first is be aware of what you're supposed to do, categorize what are the different components. There are data subject rights. Some there are responsibilities of in India. Let's call them data fiduciaries. Outside, let's call them data processors, data controllers, and so
Different.
many different names in different laws. Map out roles and responsibilities. Something that we used to do very basically when we used to make a team during our school. We would say, "Hey, you be the defender. You be
Yeah.
the goalie, you be the
I
captain.
think
You run
that is becoming the corporate norm again. So school is coming back to corporate. I think that
it."
is where
Indeed,
we are talking about roles and responsibilities.
indeed,
As a team player, we used to play cricket and stuff like that. Then you used to say, you'll handle this, you'll be there, I will come next and stuff. That
very
was the
true.
planning that we used to do accordingly. Yeah. Yeah. Very
So,
valid
so it is
point.
nothing new to our corporates. It is nothing new to our startups.
Yeah.
Everybody has some certain role.
Yeah. Yeah.
So again, quick revision: know where the data is coming from, know what the rules are, have somebody who is specifically either aware of privacy or is learning privacy.
Hmm.
So specific person doing
I think
the
from your point, I would like to take some pointers because
sure,
I'm trying to take additional points there.
sure,
Now, when we talk about privacy, people have a notion saying that if I put secure my documents or my data on the cloud, it is secure. So that's the by default is what they think. That's a
correct,
notion I have. People have, but what I would like to tell is data is yours. How you want to make it secure is your call. With
true,
DPDP, all the shift is going to be yours. How you give data, what data you are giving is to be managed and kept by yourself. And now the DigiLocker is becoming bigger, stronger, and everywhere your documents which are going to sit on DigiLocker and other platforms which Government of India is looking at, you will have to keep your data as safe as it is like having a security for yourself first. Then
correct,
about when you secure yourself, you're securing the nation. So
indeed,
that's the point that DPDP is talking about. The body is yet to be formed and stuff like that, and the law is passed since August last year. So
right,
we are in the process of getting, but I would urge the viewers to be very cautious on the data that is going to be pulled out or pushed out to the internet on the cloud space, or the data that you are getting saving across the platforms. Be careful where what kind of data is stored is what I would like to add to what you are talking about, Sanjeev.
very critical.
Sanjeev, what role would leadership play in fostering culture of data privacy, Sanjeev?
Very intriguing point. So, how about so typically I'll divide it into two or three items.
To add one point here
Sure.
is again, see, security and privacy is least considered in organizations, and we don't get buy-in.
True.
Right,
True.
so that's the challenge that we see, and that's where we are looking at how leadership will enable our uh, roadmap on adding data privacy. That's the point I want your views on.
Fabulous. I'll expand on this. It's a very
Yeah.
good question, and I also see that trend changing. A lot of leaders are now very serious about information security as well as privacy, and
Mm.
there are direct involvements in committees that are formed to regulate and improve these things internally in these organizations. Now,
Mm.
speaking about, uh, I'll take 2 points. One is the
Yeah.
leader's perspective. Second is the responsible authorities' perspective. Now, when my leadership asks me, they are interested, they want to know, they want to seriously take something up. When they come to me, I cannot be giving them a whole shebang where I talk about theorems, a lot of theories, jargons that might not really make the impact that the topic of privacy is supposed to receive. Which is where, again, it's been my philosophy. It is something that I practice. Always keep things simple. When you talk to a leadership, they have, most of them, in fact all of them today, have the seriousness about security as well as privacy, but it is about how are we conveying them the requirement of our organization, XYZ organization, to comply with certain things, and second is to actually implement those controls and practices to make them continuously run in an organization. Gone.
Yeah. Good. Good.
Yeah. So these two aspects are very critical. And third is, how do I make my leadership aware about the priorities?
Mm.
If I ask for a 7 course meal and not really worry about how it is going to impact the business, the changes, I'm not talking about finances at all. I'm purely talking about the kind of impact these new rules, new policies will bring to my business team, my designing team. So many teams that actually are impacted. So it
Mm.
is super important to try and, in fact, it should be a norm that you prioritize everything. Be frugal when you try and grow in these aspects. Now, these two aspects will always help leadership to prioritize, and the meetings discussions will be very effective. They should be to
Mm.
the point, and have a clear impact roadmap saying, by doing so and so in stages XYZ, this quarter we'll finish these kind of implementations, these kind of reviews. We'll have a check where we monitor how these are impacting our business.
Yeah.
Through this, you'll always get leadership support, and leadership has been supportive in most of the organizations that have interacted. The challenge I see has been solved by having a clear communication.
Yeah, communication plays a key role, right? So, see, leadership, I think, will look at what is the value that you are going to drive,
Very true.
okay? And what, see, technology is not complex. We have complicated it. So, we're talking about, we wanted to have it secure. It's a plain platform that is there as a technology. We want to look at some malicious people doing something. So, we had a security place there. And see, it is like at home. We want to see that nobody has an interface. We have a gate there. So kind of.
So
Then
true.
we look at CCTV stuff. Then we look at a watchman. In the olden days, we had olden days in the sense the previous to the CCTV
Right.
footage stuff. We had a security guard. So we
Correct.
started security started from there, from a guard in front of the house to an ATM to a high profile person, a leader or somebody. There used to be a guard, and that guard used to first take the blunt, and then anything happens. That was the process that we had earlier. Now
Correct.
that is turned into the IT security landscape. I think that's where we are talking about. When it is a plain technology that we are talking about, how do we safeguard what is connected in that technology space is what we are talking about security. Now when we talk that security, what are you securing? We are securing the data of that person or that people who are working in that industry or that
Right.
IT environment. So that's how the data whole plays overall is what I understand, and that is what is becoming key. And that security of a code, security of a personal information, of a client information, and the kind of business that we do is taking the momentum at the moment. And security is becoming more prominent, and with security data is playing a bigger role of each employee, each
Absolutely.
organization. So
Absolutely.
that's where I think that's the roadmap that is going on. What what are some of the balanced benefits data analytics with need of data privacy, Sanjeev?
Very interesting point, and that is something which will directly impact and grow your business for
Mm.
people who are collecting, which is where the field of data analytics has been booming. It's been there. It is there to be for the next few decades, as we see it. And the aspect is, what exactly are you analyzing, which directly impacts your business, but at the same time, to what level will you respect the privacy of different data subjects and different parameters? Which is where again I go back. It's a very simple logic that I'll build around this. It is to try and tie levels and roles and responsibilities in your data analytics team as well, or the tool to which, if you're building something in house, fabulous. Use the
Mm.
approach of least permissions for a certain subject. Use things that are absolutely data masked uh, for certain aspects which are third party tools. You could try and see what kind of information you're sharing and what parameter are you sharing. Now,
Yeah.
for very critical health, so sensitive personal information, how much of analytics do you really need?
Mm.
Talking about aspects where there are medical tests done, where there are psychological tests done, all of this data, how much of analysis do you really need?
I will take another point here. You
Sure.
are pulling out a lot of things that I was thinking about, and that makes a lot of importance points to look at. Now, I have a couple of friends who are from the medical fraternity, right?
Hmm.
But it is not related to what we are talking about on a security angle, but to see what is happening, right?
Hmm.
Uh, Earlier, if you had a checkup to be done, we
Hmm.
used to go and say, I will do a blood test, okay, or I will do a stool test or a
Very
urine test or
simple,
whatever test, very simple tests.
straightforward. Yeah.
Now, with the advancement of technology, they want to secure themselves, kind of a security. And this one,
True.
they want to know. My friend used to say is that they'll come and tell you what tests to be prescribed. So,
I
so
hear
what
you.
I'm saying from a standpoint is we had limited pointers that now with the information available across, everybody wants to see their views or
Hmm.
pointers to be referred and safeguarded. So, do I have something? It goes the same with the IT side. Do I need to check again? Do I need an IDP to be there
True.
and an IAM monitoring to be done? Then there is zero trust. There. See, we are having multi-factor authentication.
So true.
So zero trust again. So these are pointers that are safeguarding, but how much of that is commonly practiced is one thing that is getting questioned over the period, because there are a lot of tools, and with the AI coming in play to the current security landscape, the LLMs are taking a big time, and you see all the data is getting stored and it is learning by itself with the
Right.
use cases, right? So the mundane things are getting, but how the decision making is going to change with that data is going to be the key role, is what I understand. Sanjeev, what is your take on it?
Indeed. Indeed. Very interesting points. Now, I'll take a small little example
Yeah,
to simplify things and probably talk something around I walking into a center and prescribing the doctor to or the person performing the test saying I need these tests because I feel so and so.
yeah, yeah,
Now, it is one of the things. So, when you build your systems around collecting this information, it is super important to imagine the worst case scenarios.
yeah,
Imagining that there will be too much of data shared that may not really be needed. Uh, Possibly, end of the day, you just have a cold. Just go to sleep, get some rest. But then
yeah, yeah,
it is their right. I want to know if my heart is beating in the right speed, my oxygen level is good.
yeah,
They also want information about themselves. A lot of people get some chip embedded under the skin, and a lot of people wear bands, and that's perfectly their right.
yeah,
The companies dealing with all of this information need to provision ways in which they can probably not collect extra data from the subject.
Yeah.
Uh, Maybe just display it locally there. If you want to push updates to the devices, make changes in your process, but let that data locally remain there.
Hmm. I think
Maybe
from the edge data centers point of view, if you look at, that's what is happening is from the because the CCTV footage and the other the IoT sensors are huge number, right? So
correct.
the data is getting pushed to the edge data centers rather than moving it to the cloud directly. So your point is valid there in terms of how data is getting managed and stuff. What the edge data centers is doing is they filter the traffic, and they have a set of rules that are there which keeps the important data, and bifurcates and only sends the data post processing, not directly going to the cloud. So that
Right.
saves a lot of cost. One is that
Absolutely.
security aspects also. There's a copy that is there available for edit at
Mm.
local, then moving into cloud. So that's the one pointer that is there. So a lot of things are happening on the security of data in terms of CCTV footage, how important, what is critical, what is the security at key locations like your defense areas. What is to be published and what is not to be published is a key place, right? That is also a
Indeed.
national security for us, and some of the key data points are not revealed across, and that is one thing data privacy is taking up, right? So I think I am pulling your words, sorry about it. So
Go for it.
yeah.
Uh,
What are the biggest cyber security threats to privacy today, and how are you mitigating them, Sanjeev?
Now, I'll take an example. It's monsoon, so the
Mhm.
more covered your property or the more covered protected you are, the less exposure, the less you tend to
Mm.
get drenched in the rains
Yeah.
or have any exposure. So my point in a very simple way is lesser the exposure,
Mm.
lesser the threats,
Sure.
and that is where you've got to logically build your products by collecting lease data. Lot we tend to park a lot of things for future, saying, hey, if I've started this product, I'll just collect 5 things for now. I may
Mm.
not need anything else. But some products come from a vision of, they are visionaries and they're doing fabulous in their domains. But if they are doing this collection of extra information with a mindset where if I ask the user for more permission, maybe I'll not get it. Let's take an example of apps, mobile apps.
Mm.
Uh, I have a requirement of just 5 permissions for now out of all the 13 permissions.
Mm.
Now, but let's say for future development, if I want to add extra features, maybe in a text messaging app, I add a video or add an audio, I need more permissions. If I add
Mm.
screen sharing, I need more permissions. So from this perspective, why not collect all the permissions?
Yeah.
So that approach is something which needs to be, again, going back to fundamentals of privacy and security, is letting people know that this is what you're doing. And in terms of security, the TCP three-way handshake, there's a
Mm.
SYN, SYNAC, and ACK. There's a reason why we always learned those basics when we came all this way. So it's
Yeah.
important to go back to the basics and follow those principles. And by doing that, a few, let's say, see, nobody is unhackable. Knock on the wood. Let's all hope for the best. In case it happens, doomsday scenario, if it does, hey, I never
Mm.
collected a lot of information. So there isn't a
Mm.
lot of exposure. And even if it is, all the data that goes out is encrypted,
Mm.
is hashed, it's not usable.
Yeah.
So those are the measures I'm talking about.
Okay. Okay. One more pointer that I want. What steps an organization needs to prepare for new data privacy laws and regulations?
Very interesting. So first off, it is very important to know the terminologies, know the components of any, I'll call them a law.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, there's obviously the scope, the applicability, the kind of controls that are required by organizations. I'll collectively call them organizations.
Yeah.
Uh, they may be different terms in different laws. And then there are the data subjects. What rights do we have? What
Who
rights do I
owns
have
it?
to respect? Absolutely, right to forget, right to transportability. There's a whole set of rights that are given to each of the data subjects. Beyond this, there's a lot of control around where the data should reside.
Mm.
Now, just a quick point. Uh, Again, this is purely my unsolicited individual personal opinion. Is bringing in a law doesn't really do a lot of changes. Yes, it does give a heads up, but the rules of the law uh,
Got to be followed.
should be, yeah, they should be released very soon. There's got to be a continuity. There was a initial traction. There still is. A lot of people are still implementing, growing their privacy practices, but they are still looking forward to where do I draw a line, and those lines
I
will come.
think your point is very valid in terms of where is the start and where is the end for a privacy law. But looking at the see, my view is little different here from what you are. This one, correct me if I'm going in the right path.
Mhm.
But see, privacy can be anything that damages your reputation, is what I understand, right?
Mhm.
Maybe a customer that you are talking about, very sensitive information,
Very
where
true.
you have a set of business guidelines and an NDA is signed between you and the customer not to disclose certain parameters.
Correct.
What customer and what is the business volume that you are doing, or what is the kind of service that you are providing to this customer, that is between two organizations to sign up,
Correct.
right?
Correct.
So that is one thing, is a privacy is what I think from my understanding. And coming to data, again, it is what data is being shared between these things, and there is a non-disclosure agreement on what data can be shared onto public platforms, what is not to be shared on public platforms, right? These are important things that a privacy law should address, is the basic thing that I understand, right?
Mhm.
From a see, in the western countries, if you look at, HIPAA plays a great role where patients records are very very important for them. You cannot
Absolutely.
have a breach on that, right? And I think somewhere, I don't remember in which country,
Mhm.
they were even having a possibility to contaminate water, drinking water,
Wow.
in terms of that was a huge threat. You don't know.
Really.
I use the pipeline to use some kind of a thing without knowing, you'll be affected. You don't know,
Mhm.
kind of,
So
right?
true.
So
So true.
that kind of thing is what privacy is, what is connected by what kind of technology, who's monitoring it. That becomes more of a privacy in terms of when it touches large volumes of people's lives, right? So the data privacy part that we are talking about is more about your personal details in terms of your residence, your social security number, your Aadhaar
Correct.
card numbers, your PAN card numbers in India at least. Social security in the US, but in India, Aadhaar is becoming the de facto, right? So, how do we manage this data without going now to add to what we've been discussing, whole data piece,
Mhm.
empowering organizations on data privacy excellence is
Mhm.
what are we talking about? We are talking about saying how data has to be managed and what kind of data is okay to be allowed outside and what is not supposed to be allowed outside.
Mhm.
In India, I think we have the Xerox shop has more Aadhaar card details than anybody else. Right? So,
So true.
the Xerox guy has more, and the internet shop guy has all the PDFs.
Very true.
So there is no privacy on that. So how that is getting managed is what I think, that's the start of the boundary, where these are the set of guidelines that are to be managed for set of as it evolves, what are all crucial and which can damage a reputation is what is going to set the boundaries, is what I, this is my personal view. I want your opinions to be voiced over it. I think
Sure.
that's what I feel should be the start and end, because this is what we're talking about. So, what is your take on it?
Very, very interesting points. To add on to your thoughts around privacy between companies being signed, I feel confidentiality agreements, NDAs, will take care of those.
EIA.
But at the same time, we also need to ensure that our DPAs that are signed, data
Hmm.
processing agreements, have very specific clauses. I can no longer have very generic clauses and
Yeah.
imagine that they are interpreted in the right way by the
True.
processor
True. True.
or by a shared data controller. So, from the company level, that is very important. It is also important to try and see a lot of organizations have TPRM in place, third party risk management in place, where they have incorporated principles of privacy, where they would want to come and see if you are performing assessments. And what I feel is when so TPRM is a very powerful tool which a lot of organizations uh, may not exactly realize how powerful it is. It gives
Mhm.
you an exact risk of where your supply chain can go wrong.
Okay.
If so, maybe it is very important. In fact, it is very important to rate and see how the majority of your suppliers or your third parties who are helping your organization run is in terms of security and privacy. Uh, I, I picked up the larger chunk first.
Hmm.
Talking about privacy in day to day life, uh, I feel what we learned as kids was very important.
Yeah.
You drank that glass of milk, put it back in the sink.
Yeah.
So I feel I went to a photocopy shop. I gave a document. Let me ensure and see if why am I being so casual about my information that
True.
is being photocopied somewhere. Let me have a hey if I'm on a scooty or a bike somewhere, and if I simply put my helmet on the mirror, I will still keep watching at that helmet if that's being lost, right? And that is a helmet which you can buy again. Why are you
Yeah.
not so serious about your Aadhaar card information, your PAN card information,
I
your
think.
rental agreements? So security starts with you. Security is incomplete without you. At the same time, privacy also starts with you.
Yeah. So with that, I want another input from you is how do we ensure all employees understand and adhere to data privacy policies?
Interesting, very interesting question. Uh, I mean, I totally get it because I've seen a lot of organizations try and crack this topic.
Yeah.
First of all, the why and the need is very important for any aspect. Again, I'm not talking as a life guru. A lot of life gurus and life coaches have said it, but I'm just taking that basic. And the moment I make my staff, my employees, my data holders, processors, developers, infra geniuses, let them know the impact of what they're doing. And in fact, that is how I start most of my trainings, where I let them know this small thing can have a big butterfly effect.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Let them know that the power is in their hands, and whatever they do will create a lot of impact.
I think that's the ownership that they have to take on the. You emphasize this as many words as you said is your data, your responsibility.
Very well put. Absolutely.
Okay. So can you share some best practices for creating a data privacy culture within an organization?
Absolutely. Impact and the meaning of privacy can be first creating a sense of privacy among the employees, which
Hmm.
is where going. So I've always seen that giving them examples that they can relate to, they always relate to and catch on. For example, you're using a mobile phone in public place, somebody peeps in. So people
Mm.
have started purchasing the privacy screen guard. So they do
Yeah.
that, right? So why would not some? So if I am your customer and your company ABC, you've taken my phone number, you've taken my bunch of details. Now imagine how would you feel if your data is ill treated by? haphazardly storing information anywhere, sharing it with a lot of people, keeping it
I
open.
think that is where the whole thing happened and DPDP has come is right.
True,
I think
true.
Sanjeev is see. We discussed this point in the session itself. We had Aadhaar cards, we have PAN cards, we have passport copies, and more in the Xerox shop and the internet parlors. Now, how do we look at that? Is to be the first thing. I think you emphasized very clearly, saying that you are we have to take control of the helmet that is there on the mirror of a bike. Why don't we look at having data that you are sharing which
Correct.
can harm you, saying that I purchased a sim using your this one. And I would like to add, I don't know how many of our participants understand while they sign these documents, they just sign it, right? That's a common practice. You wanted a signed copy of a document, you just sign it. But how
Correct.
many people have put a date under it? I just want to understand. I don't know how many are doing that, but I would like to emphasize one point is I think the government has put a check leaf once it is signed and given. I think it stands for 90 days,
Correct.
similar for any other document. So if you are putting a date, that document will not be valid after a certain period. I don't know for various reasons which date how the government has put, but I remember for a check issued, if it is not presented within 90 days, the check is not valid. So you need to understand, if you sign, if you put a date, there's a valid period for the document to be used for processing anything, right? And
True.
with DPDP, what is happening is you'll have to tell what is this data going to do, what you're collecting, when is it getting processed, how is it getting stored, where is it getting archived, and when is it getting deleted. That process has to be known to the user by the collecting authority to tell. That is to be done with DPDP coming in,
Right.
right,
Privacy
Sanjeev?
notices, absolutely. Privacy notices, letting them know. So it is multi find approach. So for first is the company letting you know what they're collecting from you, then
Yeah.
the government also creating awareness, organizations, privacy practitioners like us, we creating awareness about what are the rights is super important. Talking about practices, the best practices is also having a bunch of automation in place, whatever simple way you can automate.
Mhm.
Set auto expiry, auto delete. We always would want to hang on to some things that are very dear to us. And for a lot of people, it has been data, but it is important to let go. It's super important to let go of the information beyond a certain period of retention. If we do not, it will cause a lot of trouble.
Now, coming to the point that we discussed, what are the future trends in data privacy and how should organizations be prepared for that?
Interesting point. I see a lot of AI, ML, automation, a lot of non-manual intervention processes coming into picture, which is what, in fact, when these LLM models also were released, they started giving in an option of you selecting an option that the AI, that the LLM will give you data using your local dictionary. It will not take inputs from outside nor use your data to
Hmm.
train its model. Now, those
Yeah.
are something that has become a norm now.
Hmm.
Uh, I see AI. So just like in Bengaluru, there was a very specific case of AI being used for traffic monitoring. Now I
Yeah.
see that application being used in the field of privacy in
Hmm.
a very mature way, where you could automate a lot of things. Now again, you made a point that manual supervision is very important. So
Hmm.
we should have a set of committee. Again, a lot of law. The DPDP has a provision for having a committee, a regulatory body,
Hmm.
which would make all the claims, complaints, and ensure this proper adherence. Now, it is super important that this maturity keeps growing and also
Hmm.
extends to all the sorts of technology that comes in, whether
Yeah.
your technology is based out of India or outside of India. As long as, from the perspective of DPDPA, if you are collecting a PII of an Indian national, it's important that you adhere to all the provisions. So, that scalability is what I see in terms of the future coming in. It's still pretty nascent, despite GDPR being launched so many years ago. A lot of another 174, 175 countries having their own laws.
Yeah,
There's still a lot of maturity for us to attain, and then automate it,
yeah, yeah.
and then bring in AI and see how best we can do it.
We are on top of the hour, so we'll move on and find out as a leader, what advice would you give to other leaders on championing data privacy in their organization, and also motivational advice from leaders' perspective tailored to their peers.
I would recommend strongly to templatize things that are not really requiring your manual labor, manual efforts. Templatize them, make them very easy, very simple. Make things duplicable and use your smartness in, or rather the brain power in innovation. Changing the way things. You've templatized something. The next step is, how do I better it? How
Mhm.
do I use my bandwidth to try and do more things by reducing repetitive tasks. Second is, as a leader, you'll always have stepping stones of failures, which actually become stepping stones to success. Never hesitate to try and fail. Again, it is super important to try and limit the exposure of the failure. So I would say, have test beds, have discussion groups, smaller groups where you can try out a lot of exercises, and then out of the learnings you can build a more robust process.
Yeah.
And always the forum, there are a lot of forums, this especially, there are a lot of ways in which you can interact and take learnings from other peers as well. uh, Having an open mind towards that is very important, is what I would say.
You rightly said on things, Sanjeev. What I think, see, the whole objective of having this podcast to start with was to start with talking about four pillars of the industry, which is technology, cybersecurity, management, and leadership. That's the intention that we wanted to start this podcast. And we started saying that if I have to manage technology, there would be a security thing that will come up. And with security, you need a manager, and a manager needs leadership to make it happen. So, those are
Right.
the pointers that we looked at bringing up this podcast sessions. We are at the 105th podcast. We started about in September 2013, 2023. Sorry. Yeah. So, we started with an audio podcast on LinkedIn, and on December 18th we moved into the video platform. Since then we are most predominantly on LinkedIn Live, which is our primary platform, because whole network of professionals is with LinkedIn, right? We didn't want to leave the other platforms untouched, so we have kept our platforms on LinkedIn. From LinkedIn we are directly streaming into other platforms to see our previous videos. We can look at YouTube. Everything is streamed to YouTube. We are streaming into Facebook, which is not very much we are, but we are doing it to YouTube and LinkedIn. Other platforms also we are having, like Twitter, Instagram. We keep posters and stuff there. Yeah, Twitter we are also streaming live. This session is live streamed to YouTube, Twitter, and LinkedIn, in three platforms. We keep our recordings links in the other two platforms also. Now, why I'm saying this is because the start of the session was intended to look at how to know where to go and whom to meet. Leaders like you and the other leaders who spoke in our previous episodes are the people whom you can follow and take out things on technology, cybersecurity, leadership, and management. That's the intention. We predominantly focus on having the knowledge sharing, like what you're sharing today, some of the use cases which you shared as well, and some of the personal experience. Because what happens is somebody needs a click or a thought, right? That may trigger a problem to be solved, right? That small trigger is what we are trying to address at the moment here in this podcast. we run this podcast on a weekly basis, 3 times a week. One is on technology, one is on cybersecurity. Technology and cybersecurity, we've kept it at one slide or
Mhm.
one day. We talk about how organizations should build teams, bring leaders, from a team lead to manager, manage to a leader, is what we are talking about on one of the managerial sessions that happens on Wednesdays.
Mhm.
On Thursdays, we bring in leaders like you who talk about one topic, whether it can be etiquette, it can be resume building, headhunting. We brought people across. And
Okay.
like cybersecurity, how the organizations are adding their excellence to what data security and stuff is what we bring. And what you told is right, where people have a large amount of data which is on Google and other places. You search, you get a lot of things. But who are the people who can be of guidance is what we thought about, and bring these kind of leaders to talk on these topics that may help us to help them to follow and look at solutions for themselves. You can reach out to Sanjeev on the link that is scrolling down. Where he's on LinkedIn. And with this, I think we have done a good show so far. I think the audience would have liked it. I would like to summarize on Sanjeev, or you have a pointer before I summarize. If you have a thought process there, any ideas that you want to share in the last words of your session here?
All I would say is it's super important to be aware of things, have a plan in any direction, be it security, privacy, and
Mhm.
a feedback loop. Enough has been spoken about failing sooner in agile,
Mm.
and I think that's the game. It's very important to have a plan, fail sooner, be aware of what you're doing.
Okay.
That's all I
Uh,
have.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Uh, Thank you for being part of the show, Sanjeev. It was a pleasure having you here on our session. Thank you for joining us on LinkedIn Live. We please do follow us on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We are all there on all the platforms. Hope you have found this discussion valuable. And our next podcast is on 18th June, 6:30 same time. We run these podcasts, as I told you, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. 6:30 is a fixed time for all the podcasts that we are having. With a new topic and a new leader sharing his experience, we look forward to see you again. Good day, goodbye for now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye.
Sanjeev. Thank
Thanks
you.
a lot.